And you're back with the Wealth Guardians. This is a special report from the Wealth Guardians, guarding your retirement from market losses with safe money strategies. Folks, if you want to get in on the conversation this morning, that number is 336-777-1600. And again, the 800 number, if you want to call and make an appointment to come in and meet with us, that number is 800-515-2919. There are live operators on that line 24 hours, 7 days a week. They'll take your contact information, and we will call you next week and talk about anything you want to talk about. We'll set up an appointment for you if you want to come in. Brian, before the break, we were talking about the market, the economy. Last night, most of you folks by now probably realize Standard & Poor's downgraded U.S. credit from AAA to AA+. I don't think it'll be that much longer before you see Moody's and the rest of the other credit rating agencies do the same, just because they don't want to be left behind. You know, all those credit agencies have egg on their face because they rode the credit default swaps down to zero with a AAA rating, so they don't want to be in the same boat again.
Absolutely not. And nothing's changed about credit default.
No, that's right.
Yeah, the same people are in power. Well,
yeah.
Help me understand.
Now, what does that mean? The U.S.'s credit rating has been downgraded. Well, here's what it means, folks. It means this.
Interest rates.
It means interest rates are going to move up a little bit, most likely. I mean, what we saw this week was panic money flowing from stocks into Treasury bonds. In fact, Brian, did you realize that the 90-day U.S. Treasury bill went negative?
Yes.
That means you had to pay the government to hold your money. Can you believe that?
Yes, I can.
That happened last time back during the 2008 panic, if you recall.
Wow. Well, this QE2, QE1 really worked.
But what scares the heck out of me is as these downgrades occur, folks, do you realize that in the next 4 years, over 61% of our current debt matures? Now, here's what the government's been doing back to the Clinton administration. Every time they have had to issue debt, which means bonds, they have tried to do it with a shorter-term bond in hopes of not paying as much interest, because typically shorter-term maturities pay less interest than longer-term maturities. But typical general accounting tells you if you've got a long-term financing need, you finance it with a long-term debt obligation. For example, your house. You know, that house of yours is going to be there for years and years, and you're going to live there for years and years, and that's typically why folks finance their houses with 15 and 30-year mortgages. But no, not the federal government. The federal government's been doing it with 10-year and 7-year bonds. So of $14.5 trillion that we owe, 61% of that matures in the next 4 years. That's about $9 or $10 trillion. Who are we going to get to buy that debt? And at what price?
Russia. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Hey, and folks, another thing that we talked about last week was a website. And that website, write this down, is www.WTFNoWay.com. That'll give you a real sense of what $1 trillion looks like. So WTFNoWay.com. Write that down, go look at $1 trillion and tell me, every time they talk about $1 trillion, we're so now numb to the word trillion, we don't really realize what we're saying, but it'll put our debt in perspective.
By the way, folks, we did not invent that web address.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's just what it is. But it does make a point, though. I met with a couple of people this week, Doug, and I'm not going to go into their complete situation, but one of them in 2000 hasn't put a dime towards these monies because she left the company, had around $400,000, like 402.
Mm-hmm.
She's gone through these ups and downs of the lost decade. She has $409,000 pre this drop.
Okay.
So she's dropped. I don't know where she is because, I hadn't met with her since a few days ago. So we've had that additional drop since then. So she's gone from basically in 11 years, she went from 400,000 to 409,000. Now
she's probably sub 400 again.
And then we kind of looked at her fees and did an estimate. She spent about 50,000 in fees during that period of time. And then the other one had somewhere around 600,000 around the turn of the century back in 2000. And guess how much she has today? Somewhere around $200,000, $600,000.
Yeah.
So she's at kind of flat. Actually, she had a little more than 600,000 turn of century, so she was down. And then you subtract out, she had about 80,000 in fees over that period of time. So basically, she'd have been better off in a safe environment. She'd have been better off with a steady 2-3%. Would have gave her more money than what she has now. And it's just people don't really, people say, well, I know I've lost a little bit. I want to make sure I get that back. And they hang into the market. Mm-hmm. Folks, when it's time to get out of the market, get out.
Right.
I mean, just get out. Don't worry about trying to make a little bit back when you're going to get hit like this. Because remember, the bears take the elevators. And a lot of folks want to hang around in the market. Well, I'm just going to make that little bit. Well, right now, the things are growing a little bit. I don't want to lose any of that growth. That's what I was getting from folks. And I can understand that psychology a little bit. But at the same token, figure out how much money you have and determine how much should be in a safe position and put it there. I mean, it's not about growth, it's about your future. And put in the proper positioning. You got to position your money right. The proper positioning can assure you you'll never run out. And that's the number one most important goal of your retirement. And then you can have that growth pot in the market properly managed.
Brian, I'm sure you're like me. You've met with a lot of folks over the last couple of years, and I'd love to say that every single one of them, listened to us, understood what we were doing, and decided to make a change and become clients. But the fact of the matter is that doesn't happen.
No, but I'm getting a lot of old calls back now.
Yeah, and here's what I'm saying, folks. I know a lot of you out there couldn't make a change for lots of reasons. Change is hard. Maybe you've been with your advisor for 10 or 15 years, and he or she is saying, stay in the market. It always comes back. The same old rhetoric. And, yeah, you had, I guess, for the last 2 years, a good reason to hang on and do that because of the bear market rally. But now I'm begging you, this bear market rally, the phase is coming to an end, and it may be sooner rather than later. Don't let this happen to your money again.
Especially if you're about to retire.
Oh, my God.
And if you're in retirement. I mean, any time is a good time to get to the sidelines when you need to. But, if you're 40, 45, yeah, it won't affect you as much. But still, why let it affect you at all? I don't get that thinking, that line. Well, I'm 40, 45, I got time. And, granted, that's better for you than someone 60 about to retire, 65 about to retire. And can you imagine just if you woke up tomorrow and 50% of your nest egg was gone? And I bet a good 10, 11% of it, 12, 15, 20% of it's gone over the since May. And you got to be careful.
My fear is this next phase of the secular bear market is historically, the worst.
It's going to drill down much deeper.
It's not a 50% loss I'm concerned about this time around. It's much more than that. And you say, oh, that can't possibly happen. This is the United States of America. It can't happen to us. Well, folks, it can. And it did.
And it has before.
Yeah. And it could very well again. I'm not saying it absolutely will.
No one knows.
But I'm saying it could. And there's ways to guard against it. There's ways to prevent your money from going down that far. There's ways to ensure your retirement. Please pick up the phone and call us. 800-515-2919.
Do yourself a favor.
Yeah. All right. We got to make room for the bottom of the hour break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.